Hello, welcome back for Sun Sign Stereotypes and Planetary Nodes Part 3. My name is Bradley Naragon, and today, unlike parts 1 and 2, we have slides for you, a lot of slides, and we're going to focus on just Aries through Virgo today, and I'm going to do something a little different to get started here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through the entire slideshow. I think this is 185 slides. And what I want you to do is just kind of observe these planetary node positions. You're going to see, even though we're only going through half the year, you're going to see a pattern of movement. And I wouldn't worry about getting too analyzing and memorizing where things are. This is more just a practice. Like, for example, when you start drawing class and they make you draw standing up with your whole arm for 30 seconds, it's kind of like that. You just, so here it goes. So we're gonna, oops, let me see if I can get the, okay, there we go. So yeah, so we're cruising through Sun and Aries here, and coming up to Sun and Taurus. So you can see right away that the inner planet nodes are moving pretty quickly, and the outer planet nodes don't really move much, which this is a nice thing in a way, because it actually, while the planetary nodes seem kind of complicated, you can actually memorize a lot of this pretty simply. And what I'm hoping is having these visuals will start to help you to kind of have some of this just get absorbed into your brains, get a little more comfortable. If you're familiar with the planetary nodes, I'm sure you are aware that, see, like the outer ones, they don't really change sign at all. They just move a tiny bit. So it's kind of this dance of the relationship between the inner and the outer, and of course, everything in your birth chart, right? So here we are, we're about at the end. There we go. So now I'm gonna restart that. And we're back to March 20th, Aries nodes. So the thing is, this is of course the backdrop, and anyone born on March 20th will basically have this backdrop of planetary nodes in their birth charts. You share this with other people who have the same birthday as you, which is part of the whole idea of thinking about how we have these stereotypes that we've given sun signs, yet we also have these planetary nodes that are shared by the sun signs. And so what I've noticed is we've kind of, without knowledge that we're actually seeing patterns of the planetary nodes, we just put them all on the sun sign. Or maybe we'll see it in another part of the chart, but it kind of gets a little, what do you call it, mingled, and it's not necessarily always correlated to the correct symbol. And so putting in these planetary nodes really it can be a lot of fun for your own chart, and it can give you that other background lens into what's going on. And of course, I probably said this in parts 1 and 2, but when you have a planet conjunct a planetary node, then of course it's going to be a lot more significant in your chart. Or for example, by synastry, maybe someone else's planet isn't on one of your natal planets, but they're on one of your planetary nodes. That might be a nice thing to know. So here we are at the start on March 20th. I was going to say, someone asked online today, they said, what does it mean when one of your planets is conjunct a planetary node? Is that like an eclipse? And to answer that question here, I would say that if you're familiar with evolutionary astrology, I guess specifically I'm not familiar with the other evolutionary astrologies besides Jeff Green's teachings. So going off of Jeffrey Wolf Green's teachings, when you have a planet conjunct one of the lunar nodes, you've got a couple different situations going on, and it depends on if it's the south node or the north node. So that same principle you would apply to these planetary nodes would be not the same magnitude as planets conjunct the lunar nodes necessarily. So you still want to think about all the other reasons why something might have more significance or weight in a chart. But if something, let's say somebody has Mercury and it's conjunct the south node of their Mercury, right? So clearly you've got the relive, resolve, and the fruition dynamics with that. So maybe there's something that they've done in the past with how they communicate their message, how they think, that they are just kind of, their brain is wired the same way again, right? So they think very similar to how they have for a long time. And maybe there's a reason why. Maybe it's also a gift. There's a fruition thing there, and at the same time, right? Usually it's a combo. There's also something to relive there. So something with communication is related to the past with the natal Mercury conjunct the south node of Mercury. Same is now if you have that natal Mercury conjunct the north node, it's kind of like you've already started evolving in that direction, and you're still heading that way. It's like when you have a planet conjunct the north node of the moon, you've already begun to develop in that north node. It's not unfamiliar territory, right? That's just a little kind of general taste of that. As we go through this, I'm gonna come through the slideshow and point out the significant alignments of the planetary nodes. I don't think I have time today to get into a lot of the details of interpretations of all of this, but I'm going to give a little bit here and there. We could definitely spend a lot more time just on what any of these mean. It's a lot of information, of course. You've got just the backdrop of the outer planet nodes is a whole topic that we didn't touch on in the first two. And I'm not necessarily going to get into it a lot here, just a little nibbles as the inner planets cross these outer planets. So you'll get to glean a little bit of that. So basically we start on March 20th here, and the first thing to notice that's pretty significant is we've got this conjunction of the north nodes of Venus and Mars down here. Like these outer planet conjunctions of Jupiter and Pluto, that's significant. It'd be a lot more significant if it was on an angle or a natal planet was conjunct it. So I'm not going to go into more detail on that right now. I do think that when you see this kind of thing, this is significant. So see this south node of Mars is at the last degree of Sagittarius here for these March 20th folk. And it's opposite the north node of Jupiter in Gemini. So when we get into that, coming from a Sag, evolving towards Gemini dynamic. And in this case, we've got these two south nodes in Sag and two north nodes in Gemini. So also to look at that in the natal chart, we would really want to put it in a house. But the north node of Jupiter, well, it's only in Gemini for a little bit. Most of the year it's going to be in Cancer. So you're going to see that. You're going to see the north node of Jupiter move into Cancer really quick here. And one of the things I found interesting is as we go forward, see that down here, we've got these north nodes of Venus and Mars carry forward. So this is kind of one of my first points about Aries suns is, they've got the north nodes of Venus and Mars together in Taurus. And it's interesting because obviously Taurus could be, the turtle of the zodiac, the slowest sign, so to speak. It's much more grounded and, sure and steady, wins the race, and Aries is, fresh out of the gates. So it's interesting for an Aries sun to have these two north nodes in Taurus, right? So as much as they may be super fired up and ready to just go in their full Ariesness, especially if you've got other planets in the sign of Aries, inner planets, right? For example, also in Aries, you're still going to have these north nodes of Venus and Mars and Taurus. And so let's see. For most of them, going to move forward a bit here to the 31st. And on the 31st, we actually have this, the south node of Jupiter and Pluto reach this conjunction right at 19 degrees Capricorn. And I'm not going to get into that right now. Sorry to just tease you with that, what that means. That's just like so much. But we might get back to that. So we're moving up April 4th. We've got significance because we just had the south node of Venus go from Aquarius to Pisces. So we had a little sign shift there. And then as we move through Taurus, especially for the end of the Aries suns, watch the nodes of Mercury. So like right now, both the nodes of Mercury are in Aries, and then boom, once we get about April 15th, we just had the north node of Mercury also go into Taurus. Now we have all three of these nodes in Taurus. And in evolutionary astrology, Taurus is a sign that is associated with survival as the first thing, right? And as an extension of that, there's themes of self-sufficiency and self-reliance, as well as self-valuing and self-worth. So these are really strong themes to evolve for Aries suns. And I think that's where, is in terms of the stereotype of Aries kind of being a lone wolf, the nodes in Taurus, the north nodes, these north nodes in Taurus support that, I would say. That it is in a lot of ways about them developing their relationship with themselves. And of course, Aries is this process of self-discovery of who we are. And with these nodes in Taurus, to me, it's speaking to get deeper, to really root into who they are and become established in oneself. So we're moving on here. Yeah, and the north node of Jupiter has moved into Cancer. We now have these three outer planet nodes in Cancer. And we've got now these three in Taurus. So it's pretty interesting to see how much that Taurus Cancer is symbolized in the evolutionary path here for Aries suns. And we're gonna scooch into Taurus season. Taurus seasons does start with the trinity of these north nodes in Taurus, which is very visually obvious here. Now notice if we go up to Sag, we can see that the south node of Mars is swinging over towards Uranus, and we've got this conjunction of the south node of Mars and Uranus. And I find this a really interesting symbol, and it happens twice during the year. It repeats. And the other time it happens is, I think it's in January, late January. I was just looking at Zelensky's chart, and he has this south node of Mars Uranus nodes in conjunction, and he's born January 25th. The interesting thing about it in his chart is it's conjunct his natal Neptune in the 6th house. And I was thinking about that yesterday, and I was like, wow, what a symbol that correlate. Okay, first, in evolutionary astrology, Neptune is in the chart is going to represent what holds ultimate meaning in consciousness, in the psyche, right? And in the sixth house, to be of service. So to be a leader, he's got that Leo moon, right? To identify with being a leader, but then having Neptune in the sixth house to be a humble leader and to be of service. But then to see that that Neptune is conjunct the south nodes of Mars and Uranus. I mean, to me, Mars and Uranus is really the duo together is like freedom fighter, right? Fighting for freedom. And because it's the south nodes, I mean, it's kind of like saying it's not really his first time at the rodeo here. He's done this before as far as past lives of fighting for one's freedom. And with that Neptune there, it holds a lot of meaning. So that was really fascinating to see that. A little detour from Taurus Sunland. Sorry about that. But you can see how you can easily start to make connections with this, right? So, and that's the exciting part. So as we move forward in Taurus, on April 23rd and 22nd, we can see that those nodes of Mars and Uranus reach an exactitude. So anyone with an early Taurus sun is coming from that south node of Mars-Uranus conjunction. And it's something to think about in terms of where they're coming from and what does it mean for them to the desire to be free. In what ways does that express now? And is there anything in their chart that's conjunct that conjunction to really bring it to light, right? And of course, I mean, for a Taurus sun to have all the personal planet north nodes in the sign of Taurus, it's interesting because you don't see this on a lot of the sun signs, where it's just like this huge emphasis on, yes, the sign that you're in is the archetype to be evolving, right? And it's so emphasized, especially in early Tauruses. As we move ahead here, going to stop on April 29th. We've got the south node of Mercury. It's entered the picture into Taurus. So if we bounce back here, I'm going to go back a few and then move forward a few now. So now watch the south node of Mercury. There we are, right? Watch the speed that it's moving. It's moving faster than any of the nodes right now. It's cruising. And that's a whole nother topic of the relation of the speeds. But basically, if you're familiar with, so just for example, when we say that Venus is conjunct the sun, there's this inferior or the superior conjunction. Is from Earth, and then here's the sun, is Venus between Earth and the sun, or is Venus way on the other side, right? And then her rate of speed is relative to that position. Is she on the inner track or the outer track? And that's how we can differentiate that the south node of Mercury that's moving really fast is on the inner track of that orbit of Mercury, and then the north node is on the far side. So the south node of Mercury is going to be cruising in really fast here, and it's going to form a conjunction with this other north node of Mercury. So we're going to watch that come into formation. And the north nodes of Venus and Mars are separating, but they are still there together in Taurus. So here we go into May. Now May is really interesting. So yeah, we still have a lot of Taurus emphasis here. And what happens is, see, here's May 3rd. Now, that south node of Mars that was on Uranus up here is going pretty quick. And just for reference, the south node of Mars, it swings from here down to here and back. Like that's all it travels each year. It does this swing between here. And you're going to see the same thing with the north node of Mars is going to swing from 3 Cancer back over into Aries and does a swing like this. So once you kind of get down the nodes of Mars swing, you can easily start memorizing where people's Mars nodes are by sun sign. It kind of seems like a lot, but it's not really that much to get used to. As we hit the May 4th, that we have a south node of Mars has switched into Scorpio. And this is going to be significant because as we come up, what we're going to have is the sun is going to align and form a conjunction with all of this business down here. Let's keep going. Boom, boom. They're converging. They're that May 9th. That is the center of this. So we've got the nodes of Mercury are in a conjunction with the north node of Mars and all of the, and the sun is right there. And all of this is opposite that south node of Mars in Scorpio. So that's a lot to chew on just there. And just to throw out one little thing about that, I mean, you think about how much that represents doing Taurus for a Taurus sun to have that signature, but we may not have been thinking of that. They're also coming from a place, a scorpionic place relative to that south node of Mars. And so it gives you a chance to say, well, how does that express? What house is that south node of Mars in? What is it like when they're doing that south node of Mars piece? And what's the opposite of that look like when they're doing their sun, north node of Mars, Taurus, right? So it gives you some really good questions to look for how the archetypes are expressing. You don't have to have the answers, but this gives you the questions. So we're moving on. And on the 11th here, we've got this north node of Saturn and Pluto in Cancer form a conjunction. And I'll speak to these nodes just briefly because in evolutionary astrology, we talk about this Capricorn Cancer axis a lot. And part of the reason that it holds so much weight is that we have Saturn and Pluto and Jupiter for most of the year in their nodes in Capricorn Cancer, right? And so, and all 3 of the south nodes are Capricorn, except for when the south node of Jupiter's in Sag for a second. And then on the other end, most of the year, all of them, the north nodes are in Cancer. So this is really a larger collective evolutionary symbol. And one of the things I like to say about it is what actually is social security. Jupiter and Saturn, of course, are the social planets. Cancer correlates to security. We are living in a world where a lot of people can't really walk out their door and feel secure and safe. And I would say that's exactly what these north nodes are telling us to do, is like, this is what you want to evolve society. Pluto, right? You want to evolve the structure, social structure, the institutional structures of society. You do that in a way so that they're nurturing, so that you actually create true social security. And in this case, the shadow, the negative expression of all these Capricorn south nodes, of course, is it's patriarchal culture, it's dominance and control of life and nature, it's unhealthy authoritarianism, dictator, so there's a lot there, and it's just a lot to unpack. And like Capricorn will suppress and repress, and Capricorn could be the most determined sign that there is, but it also can be the most give up, like, why bother, what's the point, so So that's just a little on those nodes. So if you're born on May 11th or even anywhere near there, and you've got these planets in Cancer conjunct these nodes, you might be part of this larger cultural evolution, a really key, um, person to help the larger movement of evolving culture. And I don't have chart examples with me, but I've seen it show up, and it's really fascinating. And it definitely shows up a lot, where a lot of the people that are evolving culture in a lot of beautiful, gorgeous ways are going to have planets conjunct some of these Cancer North nodes. Uh, so, so yeah, the sun at May 12th, the sun's still right here in this crazy conjunction, but you can tell that the south node of Mercury is cruising fast, and 1, 2, 3, 4, woo, it's already in Gemini, cruised on. And let's see, almost through Taurus. We've got on the 18th and 19th, that south node of Mercury is conjunct the north node of Venus in Gemini. It's kind of an interesting flavor there. I don't have that in my chart by any means, but I would wonder what that's like to have that. And if you're familiar with the archetypes of Mercury and Venus and in the sign of Gemini, you can just play with this. You can ask, like, what would it mean that we're coming from this south node of Mercury Gemini? Well, we've got a little bit of an idea of how the mind might be like, and the method of communication and level of curiosity. But then to have that north node of Venus there, it almost suggests that the mind was really active and inquisitive, but perhaps there wasn't as much sharing with other people, dialogue with others. You don't really know. So it raises these questions, and then you need to learn about the person and their life and correlate, right? I mean, it means something. What does it correlate to? So May 20th, ooh, we got Gemini sun time here. And remember I was saying that this south node of Mars is moving pretty quick. By May 22nd, south node of Mars has swung into Libra. Notice we've got that south node of Mercury is past Venus, and we're heading towards the north node of Uranus. And I'm going to talk about the north node of Uranus in just a minute. 23rd and 24th, we actually see that south node of Mercury conjunct the north node of Uranus. The north node of Uranus is a very highlighted place in the zodiac in terms of evolution of humanity. And I'm going to try to convince you of that if you haven't seen that yet in just a minute. But we're not there yet. Let's see. 25th, we've got that north node of Mercury just went into Gemini down here. So the thing I'll say about the sun in Gemini relative to what we just saw with the sun in Aries and Taurus, there are a lot of different nodal positions for Gemini suns. It's not just like all Gemini suns have a huge emphasis of this. It's kind of like all over the board. You really got to look at, well, when was that Gemini born? Because the signature is changing really fast at this time of year. And so you can see that the south node of Mercury is, boom, that happened with that conjunction to Uranus. It's cruising on. Let's see, 26, 28. And we come to the May 30th. One thing I wanted to point out, and we're going to start seeing this more, like right now, the south node of Mars here, that's at 20 Libra, that's squaring this conjunction of the north node of Saturn and Pluto in Cancer. One of the ways that you could start to work with that and think about it, besides, of course, looking at the houses it falls in, is, if you're coming from a south node of Mars in Libra, there's this older desire to really just want to connect, have relationship. And of course, Cancer is emotional security within oneself, not dependent on someone else, reaffirming and supporting you. I mean, yes, of course, we all need people in our lives to support us, and we don't live in a vacuum, but that square kind of brings up that classic tension between Libra and Cancer, where if Cancer is evolving in a way that they are emotionally secure within themselves, how does that relate to the relationships that they've cultivated in their lives? And if you've got that south node of Mars in Libra, there can be an impulse to seek relationship, right? And because it's in an exact square, it accentuates that tension between, what am I doing when I'm pulling for relationship? What is that instinct or need, and how does that relate to me being secure in who I am without needing social commentary on it, approval, or whatever you want to call it, right? So we're moving into June. Here on June, we've got, this is a really interesting, this North Node of Venus and Uranus conjunction in Gemini. And at the same time, we've got this late conjunction in Taurus with the North Node of Mars and the South Node of Venus. Gosh, there's a lot to say right there. But I wanted to get into this conjunction because also on June 4th, let's just go forward June 4th. On June 4th, the sun is right here with these two north nodes in a conjunction. So that day really highlights that point. And basically, the heliocentric north nodes, which this is of the geocentric north nodes, which I have emphasized by putting Earth in the center. That's us. And the nodes are sort of moving around us, or how we see them move around us, right? But on the heliocentric planetary nodes, the north node of Venus and Uranus are always in Gemini, and also Ceres is there. So we've got these three north nodes in Gemini. So Gemini is just kind of weighted with this Venus-Uranus Ceres conjunction of north nodes in general, which you're not really seeing here. That's just an important piece to know, because one, that emphasizes this. Okay, we've got basically this emphasis of Cancer, and then we've got this emphasis of Gemini in terms of the bigger picture of North Node emphasis for humanity. The other thing is that if you study the outer planet cycles, the Neptune-Pluto cycles, in 1398, the first Neptune-Pluto conjunction happened in Gemini, where they had been for a couple thousand years or something in Taurus, right? But then we had a Neptune-Pluto conjunction at 2-3 Gemini, and then we had a Neptune-Pluto conjunction at 8 or 9 Gemini in 1892 and 1893. And the next, which is still a little under 400 years away, the next Neptune-Pluto conjunction is going to be around here on this north node of Uranus, and the heliocentric north nodes of Venus and Ceres are in vicinity. So all that to say, so here's a story that is interesting. I mean, if you think of like freedom of information, I think of Uranus and Gemini. I think of instant communication, I think Uranus and Gemini. And if you look at the technology that evolved with not just in 1893, but even like the generation that came after that, we accelerated so much in the world through that. If you go back to the 1398 conjunction of Neptune, Pluto, and Gemini. That also, there was very significant changes in culture all through the planet. Movable type and printing press was in use in China and parts of Asia before Gutenberg, but then it really expanded globally how many books were being printed and how all over the planet, further, and that has evolved society too. So all that to say that there's certain acceleration of information, and in the digital age that we're in now, this symbol of Uranus, North Node in Gemini, I think of it a lot, and I wonder, because it is the North Node of Uranus, is like, okay, is that the direction that we're supposed to be evolving? What does that mean? And all that to segue into, I want to go back to 2020 on May 26, 2020, following murder of George Floyd. Black Lives Matter protests really kicked off across the United States and all over the planet even. And if you remember the astrology of 2020, what did we have? We had a very interesting Venus retrograde period in the sign of Gemini. Venus actually goes over this point 3 times, I believe, that spring. So that's really interesting, right? And let's see. Yeah, at the time on May 26th of 2020, Venus was retrograde at 18 degrees Gemini, basically hanging out right there. And I say that also because in 2022, this year coming up, we've got Mars doing a similar retrograde dance through Gemini. Not going to pull that up right now, but check that out in terms of these nodes. And obviously, I'm saying all this to highlight the larger collective evolutionary significance of this part of the zodiac, and then giving you a chance to kind of tie together why a Mars retrograde in Gemini is maybe a little more significant than we thought it would be. And of course, because it is following at 2.5 years after this Venus retrograde in Gemini, those two periods are going to connect. What's going to happen? I don't know, but it could be significant. Let's just say that. And all this on the precursor of Pluto about to go into Aquarius. So, power to the people, Pluto going into Aquarius, movement of the people, a revolution. We're living in some pretty wild times, and 2022 looks to be like a wild ride. So we'll see. All right, so I'm realizing that I'm gonna have to do way more parts to this series because I'm only in Gemini Sun, and that's okay. I wasn't sure. Jupiter's on my ascendant, so this thing just got like way bigger than I thought it would be. Probably just going to stop at Gemini, and then I'm just going to have to do the next quarter of the zodiac and on the next segment. So just letting you know, we're not going to get through the end of Virgo today. Okay, back to focus on this. So yeah, again, June 4th, we've got the sun right here conjunct this. If your birthday is June 4th or near here, have you thought that your sun is conjunct the North Node of Uranus and Venus? And what is your purpose in life? What house does that fall in? I mean, I would be super excited to add this in as someone who studies astrology but didn't have the planetary nodes, and be like, oh my gosh, look at those symbols. I'm so excited to be me. I hope so. So on the 5th of June, I just also wanted to highlight that all these nodes are, of course, opposite the south node of Uranus in Sag. We can say more another time. We've got the south node of Mercury is cruising into Cancer and moving up on these. North node of Mars is in Taurus still, but about to shift. This June 6th, see the nodes of Venus are coming together here. This is another thing where when the nodes of Mercury are conjunct and the nodes of Venus are conjunct, they're like on the 7th. The sun is also conjunct the nodes of Venus in this case, because they all line up from our view, if that makes sense. They're all in a row. And of course, Uranus is right there. So June 7th is really interesting. And I'm going to do the thing where I rewind a few days, watch the speed of the south node of Venus. So if you remember, whoa, south node of Venus is, it's way out there in Taurus, right? And then she passes Mars, passes Mercury, cruising, and up to this conjunction. So again, the south node of Venus is on the inner track. The north node of Venus is on the outer track. Again, I think this does symbolize that whatever this processing is was more in an inner relationship with oneself, and that sharing one's message, I would say, could be a very appropriate theme for this day and these Gemini suns. So if you think that, oh, this Gemini is just like, I can't handle, they're just, talking or something, like, well, if they're coming from a south node of Venus in this position, and the north node is to share more, and that Uranus is there, the fact that they're liberated enough to be sharing and to be communicating what their piece is, it's part of their purpose. That's what they're here to do. And so that's a good thing. That's what we want to be seeing. So if they were doing the south node of Venus, I think that there would be a lot of more of just like this internalized thought, ongoing conversation. And why aren't you freeing yourself up to share that information about the relationship, right? And in this regard, you could probably get into the Gemini archetype of Gemini has a stereotype of being two-faced. If you see this Venus conjunction, it suggests a little bit of this inner world dialogue and the outer world dialogue that they're going through, and do those align? I mean, we don't need to share all of our inner conversations with other people, of course, but is there a level of transparency that's needed in relationships, and authenticity, right? With that, especially with that Uranus there, it's just basically saying, just be authentic in your relationships with how you're communicating your words, right? Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna go just a little more here and probably wrap it up for today. We've got, so on June 8th, let's see what's happening. There's a lot happening. South node of Mercury has now reached the north node of Jupiter. And again, there's I think for these Geminis, there's a lot of interesting twists on where they're coming from in their past with how they're thinking and communicating, and the direction of what they are to share now, right? This could be a really natural symbol of being a teacher in some capacity. It makes you wonder, actually, to have a south node of Mercury in Cancer, and do you think of Geminis as being shy? Maybe they are in certain ways that we haven't actually realized, because they're good at distracting from that with other things, perhaps, or if they're if they're doing this in North Node of Venus, Uranus, they've liberated themselves and they're sharing a lot more freely. But they would know inside themselves that they're coming from a place where maybe it took them a lot of effort to be secure to communicate, right? And now Jupiter is like, okay, really open that up. And yeah, there's a lot more to that symbol, of course. On June 10th, I just wanted to point out that the sun is still conjunct the North Node of Venus. So we do have a longer period of time here for Geminis with their sun conjunct the North Node of Venus. And then on the 11th, yeah, kind of like on the 11th, see that South Node of Venus is moving really fast. So sometime between 11th and 12th, she's flying into Cancer. And up on the 13th here, we've got the precise, now we have the North Node of Mercury and Uranus in a conjunction. Pretty exciting conjunction there. Obviously, like a Mercury-Uranus combo, you think that someone's, kind of got this genius or brilliance, right? Like really like thinking outside the box, maybe even speaking in, makes me think of like a Robin Williams type vibe or something. So it's something to think about because it's the North nodes, and what does that mean, right? What does that mean to be totally liberated in your communication? June 14th, folk, or earlier, right? Because if you look, I'm gonna go back a couple days. So if you look, I mean, even June 10th, I'll use a 2-degree orb on these, sure, it's significant, and look how close they are. So you've got a whole period of time there with this North Node Mercury-Uranus conjunction that's active. And I'm going to backtrack a quick sec. Oops. June 13th, we also have the South Node of Venus is, so if we go forward, it already passed because she's going so fast. So 13th, 14th, we've got that South Node of Venus on Jupiter in Cancer. Trying to think of what to say about that. I think I have too much to say, so I'm not going to say anything. And just to wrap us up on Cancer time, we can see as we get to the end of, or not Cancer, Gemini suns, as we get to near the summer solstice, we have a huge convergence of nodes, south nodes of Mercury and Venus come up with the north nodes of Pluto and Saturn here. So, I mean, it's interesting because these folks could be bringing in, because they have south nodes conjunct these evolutionary signatures, like I was talking about earlier, is like, what does it mean to actually have social security? One of the things that we need to think about and look at when we see these south nodes of Mercury and Venus in Cancer, are there planets that are conjunct them in the chart? Are they south nodes that represent that they have developed this? That's really the question, is have they developed a true sense of security in their relationship to themselves and how they communicate in the past? And if they have, there would be a very healthy, developed Cancer archetype in how they share and communicate. It's a very interesting symbol. And then to have that conjunct these north nodes of Saturn and Pluto, it's basically would be saying that they were born with this developed sense of empathy, communicating with emotional intelligence, a healthy sense of what it means to be secure. And then just by being who they are, they have this potential to be catalysts for the change and evolution of social structures. So it's a lot to think about. And as we get June 18th, June 19th, that whole, you can see the 18th is probably the most intense cluster there, 19th. So these late Gemini suns really, it's pretty interesting. And you can see, I mean, this is all, you've got the north nodes of Mercury, Venus, Mars, all hanging out in Gemini with Uranus there. So quite fascinating. Do it my time check. We're almost at an hour. I think just for the sake of simplicity, stopping at a quarter is going to be pretty good. But one thing I want to do here before we go is go in retrograde. I'm just going backwards through. Just give you a chance one more time to watch the movement if you want. Sometimes I find it helpful to pick different things to focus on. And oh, back to March 20th. Are we back? Oops, I think I kicked myself out. Uh-oh.
No, you're back. You're back to March 21st.
Okay, thank you. It's
Perfect.
My computer. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I'm just going to run through one more time to give you a chance to download this into your brains. I do have there's the TrueNode.com website. There's obviously some programs that you can run planetary nodes on. I sell a little planetary node pamphlet on my website store, which I find pretty handy. And of course, when they're on the cusp, you need to look it up. But for the most part, this works for most of my readings and work, just looking them up there. And for transits, it's a nice quick reference. So yeah, this is the end of Gemini sun where we got, and then next time we're going to get into Cancer suns. We start to see some Leo activity, and get some Virgo action in there. I call it the humble Leo with the south nodes of Venus and Mercury and Virgo. And then as we progress through, check out, this is where we get to the trilogy of Libra south nodes, as we near the end here of the first half. All right. So that's all I got for today.
Wow. I am flabbergasted. I mean, I had high expectations and you have exceeded them. This is just
Oh my.
awesome, Bradley. I mean, I'm speechless.
Opens a whole new dimension to looking at the chart.